Welcome to Stonewall Farm, Maine. We're Sam and Kim. Over the past 30 years, we have been busy raising our daughter and son and pursuing our careers, but something was missing. Now, at age 50, we decided to sell everything and move to the country to chase our dreams of raising our own food and living a simpler life. But simpler doesn't always mean easier. Join us as we bring this neglected homestead back to life. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Homestead. If you want to follow us on our journey, just hit the subscribe button. We've had a very busy week here. We had a tractor delivered, which allowed us to set some footings for an addition that we're building onto our hay barn, as well as planting a year's worth of garlic and adding a new ram into our sheep flock. And most importantly, what it's really all about is we cooked a lot of great meals with ingredients from the homestead. Before making large purchases, we always weigh out the pros and cons to make sure it is the right decision for our homestead. Don't get me wrong, I would love to own a tractor, but what we've decided at this point in our life, it just doesn't make financial sense. A smaller tractor like this from Kubota, that if we were to purchase used in our area in decent shape, would be about $10,000. We're lucky because we're able to rent this tractor from a local farm equipment dealer that they'll deliver for about $300 a day, which is a large sum, but for the amount of times that I actually am going to use it in the year for jobs I physically can't do, like moving these footings, it would probably be about once or twice. So it would take on average probably about 15 years to pay it back. And one of the things we find that's really important in making this lifestyle sustainable, there's really two things. One is the physical activity of moving around our property really helps keep us in shape. And having a tractor would cut down on that significantly because I would find tons of ways to use it that I would now continually move around the property, like moving compost, wood chips, all of that now that I'm doing physically. The other important part is to stay debt-free, and a big part of that is really looking at each decision we make and deciding whether it makes financial sense or not.
Built these raised beds a few years ago, and at the time we put down a base layer of old rotting wood and then some sticks, etc., lots of leaves, and then compost on top, sort of like a hugelkultur method within the raised bed. And it was really great the first year, and as all hugel beds do, they slowly start to decompose, and then as you can see, our level on this bed, the soil level is more than half. And the second problem with that we're running into now is there's still some fairly large logs down there. So when things grow, they're hitting there's not enough room for the roots, basically. So what we're trying to do is, why we have this equipment here today, and before we move our compost pile, we're sort of digging the top layer of soil out in that area and putting it in these beds to fill them back up. They had compost put in last year. They don't need more compost. They just need more soil structure for the roots.
Now that we have this area here finished off as far as cleared for the new compost piles and some of the topsoil dug out, we'll be able to move the compost piles from down where we originally had put them, all the way down there, back up to here, so they'll be closer to our gardens and easier to move things around. the new ram is coming today to add to our sheep herd, and he's not trained to the single wire like our sheep are. He's trained to hut fence. So we're gonna have to put this up, and then over time, over the next week or so, train him to just the wire, because it is a lot easier to put up than the fencing. What I'm hoping is I can come right down on the outside of the other fence, pull right into here, and then let the sheep in with the girls once we get here. Brought out all 3 fences, not knowing how big I wanted to make it. 1 is enough, but I might run it down there as on the outside of the hut fence wire, so that he starts being trained.
What, on the other side?
Yeah, on the opposite side of it.
Yeah.
So there's a barrier, so he won't necessarily run through the wire and out. He'd come right up against the fence, but they'll start teaching him that that wire is hot. You guys ready?
Hi, you're almost out.
Wasn't too bad. It was a short trip. You gonna come meet your new ladies?
They are very curious.
It's super curious. Trying to think of how to do it so he can go right out and in.
You just gotta pull
Do you
this
want me
back.
to open this? This is still going. Ooh!
What?
That's not off?
No, that's not off. Just this is off.
That hurt. Oh, tingle. Like, that doesn't feel right. What do you want me to do?
Hold on.
Yep.
It's
Don't touch the wire. More afraid of them getting out at this point, which I suppose. They'll come back for food. We're gonna have to take that off. Maybe this. It's gotta come in more. Still good.
No, that's all right. Just straight out.
Well, let's spread it out.
Yeah, I can move it like this, Ken. Let's just keep going in.
Just get down. What do you think, buddy? You're getting a little bit of attention, huh?
It's time to plant the garlic. For us, it's always around Halloween is when we do it. But before that, we have to get the beds ready, and that means putting some compost on them and minerals, and then they'll be ready to plant. This location is much better, much closer to the garden. Ooh, that was a lot. The next step in our process is to put on some minerals. This is a blend a local farmer had come up with that we've started to use, and we're hoping it makes a really good difference, but we'll find out. We started it last year. We plant two different types of hardneck garlic, Music and Bogatir. We're planting 165 cloves of Music and 85 cloves of Bogatir this year. That would be for our seed garlic and a year's worth of garlic for us to eat.
So we just use this old pole from probably a broom that broke to make our hole for the garlic seed. About 4 to 6 inches deep and 6 inches apart. These are nice big cloves. I might need the bigger pole. I can't get it very deep. We plant our largest heads of garlic with the theory that if you keep the largest, then you're just sort of breeding bigger heads of garlic at each generation. So these are actually quite large. Which at the time can be difficult because you don't want to give up those big beautiful heads, but in the long run they should all be that size. Tonight we're making meatloaf. We are going to cook up one of our buttercup squash from the garden, some of the pinto potatoes, and we foraged some oyster mushrooms this week, so we want to cook those up. But for the recipe for the meatloaf, you can go to Well Beyond the Kitchen's blog. Our friend Sarah writes that blog, and she has a good meatloaf recipe that we've really enjoyed. It incorporates a little liver, which we like to hide in all of our ground beef. So we always try to grab at least quarter pound package of liver to go into 1 pound of beef. This recipe calls for 2 pounds of beef, so we have a little bit more liver.
The squash looks really good.
great.
Yeah.
That color's gorgeous.
Look at the color of the inside of that. It's beautiful. This is our first year growing buttercup squash. We'll let you know throughout the winter how they do as far as cooking and storage.
We don't grow our own beef yet, cows, so we buy from a local farmer. This year we bought half a cow. It's in the freezer downstairs. This recipe calls for a cup of almond flour so it can be gluten-free. We actually just use our sourdough bread. When we get to the end of a loaf, we have the ends or they're starting to get a little bit stale. We just grind it up in our Vitamix, throw it in a Ziploc in the freezer, so we always have breadcrumbs available for whatever meal calls for it. So we just use, again, instead of the gluten-free, we're just going to use our sourdough. It's going to be very full.
Kim doesn't like cutting up the liver. That's my job.
Are you gonna mix?
Yeah, I'll mix. The nice thing is once we're processing our own animals as far as lambs or a beef cow, we'll be able to grind and add the liver right into the ground lamb or ground beef and not have to go through this part of it. We can just then separate it into 1 pound packages and it'll be already pre-mixed, which will be nice. You want to add in the egg and the milk, my hands are.
Oh, look at that color. Maybe a little milk.
Just a splash. Good.
Now we bake it in the oven for 1 hour and then take it out to put the glaze on. So the meatloaf is now ready for the glaze. For this glaze, it's just molasses, approximately a 1/4 cup, some Dijon, it calls for ketchup, but I have some tomato paste. I'm just going to use that. That looks good.
Yeah, it does. It's like, I think it came out kind of drier, but which is nice because then when we add in like the butter and maple syrup, it'll be yum. We should have leftovers of this. I think it would be fun tomorrow to make those kind of like pumpkin crepes.
Oh yeah, like pumpkin pancakes.
Yeah.
Grain free. Okay, back in the oven for 15 minutes.